Curse of the Sea Rats, an epic hand-drawn metroidvania, is what they say on their Kickstarter, which managed to raise $259,000 USD. Now, this game is created by Platoon Studio, hopefully I'm saying that right, and it is a metroidvania if you love those games. So, as someone, for example, who's played Owlboy, Ori, and Hollow Knight, I definitely had a bit of experience with these type of games, so I was very excited to try this game out, especially with the demo that they gave me. So in this review, I'm going to take a quick look at my first thoughts of this game are, if I think it's going to hold up in the Hall of Fame of other Metroidvania games, and just initial thoughts. Now, the first thing I look at in any of these games is the ambience and the music. Now, in Curse of the Sea Rats, I think they did okay with the music. Not as great as Ori the Blind Forest or Hollow Knight, at least for now. I did only play the demo, which is only a couple hours. However, I did feel like the music wasn't too captivating, but it was pretty decent. And I think the ambience, though, is where it really did well in. I think, as I mentioned the games before, the ambience is just amazing. If you play Hollow Knight, if you played Ori, you just know, like, when you go into a new map or new area, you just like, it's like overwhelming in terms of what's in the background, how it's themed, even just small things like drawn in, like trees and stuff. It just creates a really nice ambience, and I think Curse of the Sea Rats did this really well. On their Kickstarter page, they really talked about how they're really selling the ambience, and it's all about the hand-drawn perspective on picking out specific themes and drawing them out in a matter. And I did notice a lot of smaller things in the game as well. So I think ambience wise and the music, I think Curse of the Sea Rats did pretty well. I think it really did better on the ambience side rather than soundtrack, but once again, it's all up to preference. Some people prefer that type of music maybe, but that's just, my opinion. Okay, let's talk about the multiplayer. Now, one of the most exciting parts of this game is the fact that it will have local multiplayer. This means you can have up to 4 players playing alongside each other. So, for example, if you want to invite friends over for, to play a game, this game is right up the alley. Now, a lot of the times, Metroidvania games are simply single player, which is why I'm going to highlight this, and just pretty excited to be honest to see that this has multiplayer. Obviously, this review doesn't have it. I just wanted to run through the game quickly to give you my initial thoughts, but I'm really excited to see that this game will have multiplayer, so I'm excited to do a review when it has co-op. But either way, that's really exciting. Now, the gameplay itself I think is pretty decent. I did talk about the ambience and the music and stuff, but the gameplay itself does remind me a bit of a mixture of different types of Metroidvania games put together. What I mean by this is, for example, the combat is not that fluid. In Ori, if you played that, it's very fluid. For example, if you want to hit and walk back at the same time, you can. In this game, you can't do that. If you hit, you're kind of locked into the animation. You can jump and like swing or melee attack, but there's a bit of static animations or kind of locked in animations in certain mechanics of the game. I think personally, it's not a big deal. I just needed to take a bit more time to get used to it, to be honest. But I personally feel like it's still pretty decent. You're using a lot of jumping as well as ducking as dodging mechanics versus kind of fluid combat mechanics that you expect in Ori or Hollow Knight. But overall, the game is still pretty hard. I think it's definitely not as hard as Hollow Knight, but the game mechanics in terms of fighting the bosses and stuff, like I think the bosses have a decent difficulty on them, kind of similar to Ori in my opinion as a game comparison, but still pretty hard. I died a few times definitely fighting some of the bosses. And on a boss note, it's really exciting that they implemented kind of like mini bosses in the game as well, where it gives a bit of boss vibes to it. So for example, in the screen here, you can see like it does feel like you're fighting a proper boss, but it's not actually a proper boss. In a lot of other Metroidvania games, mini bosses are just not very obvious, but in this game, they do make it quite obvious. So I think that's pretty kind of like an arcadey style type element there. So overall, I think the gameplay itself is pretty cool. You definitely have skills and stuff you can level up. You have up to 4 playable characters if you're not playing solo, or even with like one or two friends. So you can definitely try different characters out. Each character has a bit more uniqueness to it. Some might have a melee focus, some might have range focuses, and just different weapons and stuff. So I think overall, this game has a lot of variety. And from me playing the demo, I think it's going to be really great. I think this game is going to be awesome. when it comes out, and I'm super excited to try out the multiplayer with it. So yeah, hopefully this video gives you a bit more insight into the game when it does come out, and hopefully you'll have a go at it. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video.